Alex had always thought that life was a straightforward equation: work hard, follow the rules, and things would naturally fall into place. But by the time he reached 23, he had realized that life didn't work that way. He had grown up in a small town where everyone knew everyone else's business, where dreams often felt like luxury items, and where failure seemed to loom over every ambitious thought. Alex had a stable job at a local grocery store, but stability had a price: monotony, exhaustion, and the constant sense that he was drifting while others were flying. Every morning, he walked into the store, greeted the same customers with the same smiles, and stocked shelves he had memorized long ago. The work was honest, but it made him feel small. He would come home, flop onto his bed, and stare at the ceiling as the familiar ache of frustration settled in his chest. "Why am I stuck here?" he often asked himself. "I want more. I want to feel alive, not just exist." He tried to ignore it at first, convincing himself that life was just like this, that ambition was for other people, not for someone like him. But deep down, the thought gnawed at him like a relentless tide. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was capable of something greater, if only he could find the key to unlock it. One evening, after another exhausting day at the store, Alex lingered on the sidewalk outside the small apartment he shared with two friends. The sun had already disappeared behind the horizon, leaving a faint glow of orange and pink in the sky. He noticed a group of teenagers laughing, planning their weekend adventures, and it struck him how alive they seemed, even in their ordinary lives. It was then that a thought struck him. Maybe the difference between them and him wasn't circumstance or opportunity, it was attitude. The next morning, Alex woke up with a strange sense of determination. He decided to test his theory. Instead of going through his routine with the usual resentment, he approached the day differently. When a rude customer snapped at him, he didn't respond with anger or resentment. Instead, he smiled, acknowledged their frustration, and helped them calmly. When a coworker criticized him unfairly, he didn't dwell on it. He listened, nodded, and focused on doing better. By the end of the day, something strange had happened. He felt lighter, as if a weight he hadn't realized he was carrying had lifted. His mind, which had been clouded with negativity, suddenly seemed clearer. For the first time in a long time, he noticed the small joys around him: the sun shining through the store window, the friendly banter of his coworkers, even the feeling of stocking shelves with purpose rather than obligation. Alex realized that his attitude had changed his experience of the same environment he had always complained about. He had discovered the first truth: life doesn't change because of circumstances. It changes because of your mindset. Encouraged, Alex began to experiment further. He started small, taking on tasks he had previously avoided because they seemed too difficult or boring. He smiled more, listened more, and stopped complaining about problems he couldn't control. He noticed that people responded differently to him. His boss, who had always seemed distant, began trusting him with more responsibility. Customers who had previously been indifferent or rude started treating him with respect. Even his friends began noticing a change in his energy, a sense of calm confidence that was new and magnetic. Then came the real challenge. One afternoon, while closing the store, Alex overheard a conversation between two older colleagues. They were talking about a new business opening in town, a small cafe that needed staff who were ambitious, hardworking, and willing to learn. Most of the staff in town dismissed it as just another fad, a risk that wasn't worth taking. But something about it intrigued Alex. He realized that this was the first opportunity he had seen in months that genuinely excited him. But fear crept in almost immediately. What if he failed? What if he wasn't good enough? What if this step up made him miserable? He sat in his car for nearly an hour, gripping the steering wheel, wrestling with the familiar pattern of self-doubt. Then he remembered what he had discovered recently. Attitude changes everything. His mindset could either limit him or propel him forward. He took a deep breath and made a decision. He would apply. He would give it his all, not because he was guaranteed success, but because he refused to let fear control his choices. The next day, Alex walked into the cafe, resume in hand, heart pounding but face calm. He introduced himself to the manager with a confident smile, not hiding his excitement or nervousness. The manager, a woman named Clara, seemed to notice something unusual in him, a quiet determination, a spark that was rare in applicants. They talked for nearly an hour, discussing responsibilities, challenges, and the vision of the cafe. By the end of the conversation, Alex was offered a position. It wasn't a high-paying job, and it came with long hours and new responsibilities, but it was something different, something that would push him beyond the monotony of his old life. At first, the transition was tough. The cafe demanded more from him than the grocery store ever had. Early mornings, late nights, demanding customers, and complex tasks tested his patience and energy. He had moments of doubt, moments when he wanted to quit and return to the safety of his old routine, but then he remembered the lesson that had changed everything. Attitude determines experience. He decided that every challenge would be an opportunity to grow rather than an obstacle to resent. As weeks turned into months, Alex noticed dramatic changes in himself. He became more patient, more creative, and more resilient. He began experimenting with ideas for the cafe, ways to improve customer experience, strategies to increase sales, methods to motivate his team. His suggestions were noticed, appreciated, and implemented. For the first time, he felt that he was not just working to survive, but working to create, to contribute, and to build something meaningful. Outside of work, his attitude began to influence other parts of his life. He approached relationships with more empathy and understanding. He tackled personal goals he had abandoned, like learning to cook, improving his fitness, and even starting to write a small journal of his thoughts and dreams. He discovered that the more he invested in his attitude, the more the world seemed to respond positively. Opportunities appeared in unexpected ways, challenges became lessons, and failures became stepping stones. One evening, months later, Clara, the cafe manager, called him into her office. Alex entered, uncertain, expecting criticism or new assignments. But Clara smiled warmly. "Alex," she said, "I've noticed something rare in you. You don't just react to life. You shape it. You face difficulties with a mindset most people never develop. That's why I'm promoting you to assistant manager. You're ready to lead, to inspire others, because you understand what most never do. Attitude changes everything." Alex left her office stunned, not just by the promotion, but by the realization of how far he had come. He remembered the nights spent doubting himself, the endless days of monotony, and the first decision he had made to approach life differently. He realized that his life hadn't changed because the cafe was better than the grocery store or because people had started noticing him. It had changed because he had chosen a better attitude. In the following years, Alex continued to grow. He became a leader in his community, someone others looked up to not because of luck or talent, but because of his resilience, positivity, and unwavering mindset. He faced setbacks, failed business ventures, difficult relationships, and moments of despair, but each time, his attitude served as an anchor. He had learned that life could not always be controlled, but his response to it always could. People often asked him for advice. "What's your secret?" they would say. "How did you turn your life around?" And Alex would smile and reply simply, "It's not a secret. It's a choice. Every morning, you choose how to see the world, how to respond to it, and how to act. You can't control every situation, but you can control your attitude. And attitude changes everything." Years later, Alex would tell the story of that young man working at a grocery store, frustrated, tired, and feeling trapped. And he would say this, "I wasn't different from anyone else. I wasn't luckier, smarter, or more talented. I simply decided that my attitude would define my life. not my circumstances. Every day you have the same power. Your challenges are real, your fears are real, but your attitude, the way you choose to face them, that's what determines who you become. And that's the most important lesson of all. Your circumstances may be tough, life may throw unexpected challenges, and failure may visit you more times than you can count. But there is one thing no one can take from you: the choice of your attitude. Because when you choose the right attitude, everything changes. Opportunities appear where there were none, relationships deepen, and even failure becomes a stepping stone. The world doesn't bend to your wishes, but it responds to your mindset. Your attitude determines whether you shrink in the face of challenges or rise stronger than ever. So remember Alex's story. Remember that small decisions every day, the way you greet people, the way you respond to difficulties, the way you push yourself, compound over time into a life of meaning, success, and fulfillment. You may not be able to choose everything that happens to you, but you can choose how you meet it. And that choice, that attitude, changes everything.